to his recliner. He can walk short distance with a walker and has a hearty appetite. Jay and I miss our Sunday morning gatherings with you, but as Roy gets them posted on YouTube, we watch the lessons that Kevin presents. I believe your prayers and love are keeping us going. The last 2 weeks, I have seen him recover from an upper respiratory infection. His lungs are clear, and his blood pressure is 120/70. A lot better than mine. I'm not delusional. I know he has inoperable cancer, but God's not ready for him yet. Jay's acceptance is remarkable. I want to thank you for the prayers, calls, cards, and visits. May God bless each one of you because you have surely been a blessing to us. Much love, Linda Benthal. Let's have a word of prayer for Jay and Linda. Our Father, we thank you for all the blessings you've given us. We thank you for Jay and Linda and what they've been doing in our class, Father, and what they do in our church and what they do in their community. We ask, Father, that you would be with them at this time in a very special way, that they could feel your presence and know that you are there. We ask, Father, that you would continue to help Jay get better and help them to meet this time in a spiritual way that would be a witness to all of us as it looks like they're doing. Again, we thank you for your blessings. Help us through the class today, Father. Let us learn what you want us to know today. These and all things we ask in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, you see the eagle on the screen. You probably cannot read what it says. At least I can't. Maybe my lens aren't as good as yours. It says, when a storm is coming, all birds seek shelter. The eagle alone avoids the storm by flying above it. They fly above the clouds. So in the storms of life, may your hearts soar like an eagle. We're going to have an eagle in our lesson today. That's why we have an eagle. This is a bald eagle. This is a golden eagle. Eagles, I think, are beautiful. Beautiful part of God's creation. All right, pop quiz today. On what day did God make the flying creatures, the sea and flying creatures? What day? When he created the world. You should know. I was going to have a pop quiz. All right, day 1, he created the earth, the space, the light. Day 2, he made the atmosphere so we could breathe. Day 3, he parted the waters so we have dry land and plants. Day 4, he did the sun, moon, and stars, we talked about last week. Day 5 is the day he made the sea and flying creatures. And day 6 is when he made the land animals and man. Okay, so flying creatures and flying birds and things like that's all part of his creation. And they're beautiful. They're beautiful. How many like birds? How many have a bird feeder at home? Okay. We do. Does a squirrel ever get in it? We've had a problem with that, but I think Jimmy fixed it. All right, let's do some fun facts about eagles. Okay. The bald eagle is the one that's third from the right, but the first one, its wingspan is 50 inches. Okay, that's a hawk. The second bird there is an osprey. Its wingspan is 66 inches, 5 feet and 6 inches. The next one is a turkey vulture. Its wingspan is 67.5, so 5 feet 7.5 inches. The eagle's wingspan is 81 inches, average. They can go up to 7 feet. That's how long they are. That's the bald eagle. The golden eagle is just 81.5, so it has a little bit larger wingspan. The really big bird up there is the California condor. You can read that? Oh, California condor. It's a great big old bird. I wouldn't want to meet that in the forest somewhere. All right, the bald eagle is not really bald, okay? It has white feathers. Bald, the word bald comes from piebald, an English word that means white-headed. White-headed. Some of us could be called piebald, right? White-headed. So the wingspan, they have powerful wings. That's my point here. They're unusual since they are big birds. They can they let other birds hitchhike on their back, on their feathers in the back. They can live up to 30 years in the wild, and 50 years in captivity. I guess most people have been to Dollywood. They have a bird sanctuary there, and they take in eagles. What they actually do is go find birds that are can't fly or something like that and nurture them back. So it's a really neat thing. The wingspan, like I said, of an eagle can be up to 7 feet. They can reach speeds of up to 120 miles an hour when they're diving for prey. That's fast, right? We don't drive that fast. At least we shouldn't drive that fast. That's fast. Isn't that amazing? God creates creatures like this. Their grip with their claws is up to 10 times stronger than humans. So they can pick up big things. An eagle's eyesight is up to 8 times stronger than a human. They can really focus and see little things and then dive down there and get them before you know it. They fly up to 12,000 feet sometimes. 12,000 feet. Did you know this? You can't pick up a bald eagle feather without a permit. So if you're walking in the woods or in the backyard and you see a bald eagle feather, you can't pick it up. It's against the law. What? Well, that's the thing. How do you know it's a bald eagle's feather? I don't know that either. But it is against the law to pick up a bald. They're an endangered species, have been for years, and there's actually a law that says you can't do that. If you can't be in possession of it, and you can't if you see one and you know it's a bald eagle feather, or if you don't know what kind of feather it is, you need to call the wildlife people and ask them before you pick it up, I guess. Because there's a fine up to $5,000 and up to a year in jail. Now, I doubt that. Now, this law does not apply to Native Americans, American Indians, because it's part of their culture. But this is a rule that we have to obey. Rules. Has your children never told you that? Rules. Oh, yeah, don't do this, don't do that. Rules. We have lots of rules. When I was growing up, we had a rule in the summertime when we were out of school. My dad would always take a nap after lunch, and they had the attic fan going, and you shut off half the house, you turn the fan on, and you better not open that door, because then the fan, it wouldn't pull in out of the windows, and he'd get hot. So that was a rule that we had to obey, and we had to be quiet too. So we had to stay outside. But that wasn't a big thing back then. We stayed outside anyway. When you were growing up, what were some of the rules your family had that maybe others didn't? Discuss that amongst yourselves. What are the rules you had to follow as a kid when you were growing up? Anybody want to share something that they had to do at their house that maybe was different than other houses? Pretty much everybody grew up. Yes, ma'am. Linda? Oh, don't speak to a boy before the boy speaks to you. That's a good rule to follow. Well, nowadays that wouldn't work, right? my mama told me I had to clean up the kitchen on Sundays, and sometimes you'd have the preacher over, and you have lots and lots of dishes, extra dishes, when you have company. And on Sunday, it's always a big meal. And family was over. It's always a whole lot of it. And what she would tell me is, get in there and clean up that kitchen and act like you like it. So that's a good philosophy, way to live. If there's something you don't want to do, get up there and do it, but act like you like it. And if eventually started making fun of things like that. So yeah. But we've always had rules to follow. We have laws to follow right now. And basically, they're mostly for our safety, right? Mostly for our safety. In the case of the eagle, it was just to save the eagle so they wouldn't become extinct. So we're going to talk about rules and being obedient to rules. Were you ever disobedient to your folks? If you were, what happened? I remember one time we rode our bicycles to the store, and apparently we weren't supposed to do that. Because when we got back, my daddy whipped my brother. He didn't whip me because I was too young, and I was a girl, but he whipped my brother. So we didn't go to, and then but later on they bought us motor scooters. I don't understand it, and let us go wherever we wanted to go. That's strange. All right, promises we can keep on. That's the unit we're talking about, and this is session 4. And it's God's promise to make a holy nation. We talked about that was part of the covenant with Abraham, become a holy nation. Or this is going to be his promise to make a holy nation. It's Exodus 19, verses 1 through 8. The setting, God remembered this covenant with Abraham to make him a great nation. All right, this is 400 years after Abraham. The Israelite people went to Egypt because of a famine. And they've stayed there 400 years, and they have become enslaved by the Egyptians. But God remembered the covenant. God parted the Red Sea and brought his people out of Egypt. And the covenant continues with Moses. So that's our setting. He's bringing the people out of Egypt. Moses, God parted the Red Sea through Moses. Think about it. They walked on dry land through the parting of the sea, and they had walls of water like that. That would be scary, right? I don't know how deep it was where they crossed. There were many places to cross. It looks like it was kind of at the end, so I don't know if it's that deep or not. But how many people were with him? 2 million. 2 million people to get across that Red Sea before the Egyptians caught up. And they did. Well, they almost caught them because they were in the river and the sea went back and drowned them. But that was a lot of people for God to take care of. So he brought them out of the Red Sea into the promised land. Okay, and they went to the city, and this is where our lesson starts today. But before we do that, here's another question. When you travel, what kinds of preparations do you make? Share one of your favorite trips with the people at your table. What kind of preparations do you make when you travel? Or used to travel? Maybe we don't travel as much as we used to, but when you used to take trips, when you took your family on a trip, maybe just to visit another family. And what was one of your favorite trips? When I was young, we'd pack up the car, whatever car it was, usually not air conditioned. They didn't have air conditioned cars on some of those trips. And we never had a motel reservation. We just took up, went out west, Yellowstone, or wherever we wanted to go, and maybe would go to somebody's house, a friend of Daddy's, and see them. But other than that, we'd go from one motel to another, just, I guess, trusting God's going to take care of us. Nowadays, you don't leave home without a reservation, right? You know where you have to be every day that you're gone. You want a reservation. And reservations have been kind of hard to get this summer for some reason. You ever stayed in an Airbnb? Or Vrbo? Use Vrbo? Okay, well, that's the thing nowadays. You went to somebody's house. Kind of cool. All right, when we think about the Israelites, the 2 million people, how much preparation did they have? And how do you control a trip with 2 million people? Ever been, I know most of you, they used to have bus trips here, right? The senior adults used to go, different trips. Think about all that had to be planned, you know, where you keep the senior adults busy every day, otherwise they complain or something like get tired. But you don't want to get too tired, and you don't want them to walk too much, and you don't want them to get hungry, okay? That's the biggest thing when you take off youth is you don't want them to get hungry. You feed them before you start, and then you plan on feeding them every 3 or 4 hours. Otherwise, they get hangry. All right, the point of this part of the lesson, or this lesson we're going to talk about, is God's promise to set apart his people was conditional on their obedience. God's promise to set apart his people was conditional on their obedience. Part one says, our commitment to God and obedience to him is a response to what he's done for us. Okay, why shouldn't we be obedient to God? Because of everything he's done for us. Look at verse 1. In the 3rd month of the same day of the month that the Israelites had left the land of Egypt, they entered the wilderness of Sinai. After they departed from Rephidim, they entered the wilderness of Sinai and camped in the wilderness, and Israel camped there in front of the mountain. It took them 3 months of trusting God to get to this place, but they finally arrived. They saw God's deliverance from Egypt, received his guidance on the way to go, saw his glorious victory at the Red Sea, received God's miraculous gifts of food and water, and they saw a prayerful victory won over the Amalekites. Israel stayed in the wilderness of Sinai until Numbers 10 in the Bible. That's more than 57 chapters of Scripture are devoted to what happened in Israel the year they stayed in camped at Mount Sinai. In one sense, all that went before was meant to bring them to this place. This was the beginning of the fulfillment of what God said in Exodus 3, "This shall be a sign to you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, they shall serve God on this mountain." Sinai was the place where Moses met God on the burning bush. The whole nation of Israel would soon experience some of what Moses did at the burning bush. Moses could lead them to this mountain for this experience because he had already been there. The people could not go further than the leader. If the traditional site of Mount Sinai looks like anything, it looks like a huge pulpit, a sudden steep outcropping of a mountain out in the wilderness. Here God preached one of the most dramatic sermons. Verse 3, Moses went up to the mountain to God, and the Lord called to him from the mountain. So God actually spoke to Moses on this mountain again. "This is what you must say to the house of Jacob and explain to the Israelites. You have seen what I did to the Egyptians and how I carried you on an eagle's wings and brought you to me." Moses led by God, went up on the mountain to meet God as he had before. And the Lord spoke to Moses again. God gave a message to Israel through Moses, a message regarding his purpose and destiny for Israel. This destiny was based on what God had already done for them in the great deliverance from Egypt. I bore you on eagle's wings. And eagle's wings are strong and sure, but they also speak of careful protection. It is said that an eagle does not carry her young in her claws like other birds. The young eagles attach themselves to the back of the eagle. They're on the back of the mother and are protected as they're carried. Any arrow from a hunter must pass through the mother's wings before it could touch the young eagle on her back. The deliverance, I bore you on eagle's wings, was for fellowship. He brought you to myself. God didn't deliver Israel so that they could live apart from God, but so that they could be God's people. And the same is said to us today. God didn't save us to live apart from him. We are part of God's people. So Moses reminded the people of what God had done. He rescued them from the 400 years of Egypt bondage. He parted the waters of the sea so his people could pass through on dry land, then drowned the Egyptian army. He provided food and water in the wilderness for them. He protected them from their enemies. So Moses laid out the facts of what God had done for them. Therefore, they should be obedient to him. We need to remember how God has blessed us. One way he's blessed us is by protecting us, providing for us. His provision, he provides for our needs, physical, emotional, and spiritual. God provides for our needs. Health, God's healing and well-being sustains us. Salvation through Jesus Christ, his Son. Victory, God grants victory over challenges and enemies. Now, I'm sure if you thought back in the last 50 years, you've had some challenges. And who brought you through those challenges? God did. He gave you victory over the challenges. He doesn't take away the challenges. You have to live through them. But God brings you through them. He grants you the victory over challenges and enemies. Favor. His favor opens doors and brings success. Again, if you think back over the last 50 years, you can see how God has opened doors for you, maybe in your career, in your family, in your friends, and he closes doors. You find favor in him he brings you success. You have his favor. All people do. All God's people do. Establishment. He establishes our steps and plans. Remember the verse that says our plans are not his plans? We don't know God's plans, but he establishes our steps. That's what I'm talking about when he closes the doors on certain situations. In the minister's life, you're always getting calls from this church or that church, and you have to pray about it. Does God want you to go to this church? Or this church comes open and you say, oh, that'd be a good opportunity, to go there. And you wait and you see what God says. He establishes your plans and your steps. And the same thing with you, with your careers. God established open doors for you to go through and the plans for your life. And he still does. What kind of plan does God have for your life right now? You say, well, I don't know. I don't work anymore, and I can't get up and down too easy, can't walk a lot. He establishes your steps, and he has plans for you, and we should be thankful for it. That's part of his blessings to us each and every day. And that's why we wake up and we think, oh, it's a new day. What does God have for us today? And then, of course, I think the biggest after salvation, of course, is his presence, knowing God is with us. no matter what. The good times, the bad times, the even times when you don't even know he's there. God's presence is so vastly important to the Christian. So we need to remember these things. Sometimes we get all worried about something and we forget how God is taking care of us always. And he always would. Why? Why does God take care of his people? Why? We are his family. Remember when Brother Kevin told us we're his family? Don't you take care of your family? Didn't your family take care of you? We are his family. That's why God takes care of us. And that's why what he wanted to do for the Jewish people, the Israelites. He made them as the people, and he wanted to take care of them because they're his family. Part 2, obedience. Our obedience to God reflects our relationship with him as his special possession. Now, we don't get all these blessings for nothing, do we? Yeah, by grace we're saved, but what about if you really love God, won't you obey him? I mean, why did you obey your mom and dad? Because you loved them, right? And also they'd whip you, but you love them. You're part of their family. Look at verse 5. Now, if you will listen to me and carefully keep my covenant, you will be my own possession out of all the peoples. Although all the earth is mine. So he's telling the Israelites, if you will listen to me and carefully keep my covenant, you will be my own possession out of all the peoples, although all the earth is mine. So he's choosing the Israelites for a divine reason, a divine purpose, even though everybody is his people. And you will be my kingdom of priests and my holy nation. These are the words that they are to say, you are to say to the Israelites. This is what he told Moses to say to the Israelites. God would make a formal covenant with Israel at Mount Sinai. Before he did, he revealed he wanted them to be obedient to him. Before God called Israel to keep his law, before he gave him the 10 Commandments, before he gave him the law, he commanded them to keep my covenant. The covenant was greater than the law itself. The covenant made with Israel involved law, sacrifice, and the choice to obey and be blessed or to disobey and be cursed. It's the same choice we have today. God intended for Israel to be a special treasure unto him. He wanted them to be a people with a unique place in God's great plan, a people of great value and concern to God. It wasn't as if God ignored the rest of the world. He said, for all the earth is mine, but that he was determined to use Israel to reach the rest of the earth with his message. He had a divine purpose for them. God intended for Israel to be a kingdom of priests, where every believer could come before God themselves, and as a group, they represented God to the nations. Today, we are a royal priesthood. 1 Peter says, those who serve God as both kings and priests. Revelation says, and has made us kings and priests to his God and Father. We are a royal priesthood. God intended for Israel to be a holy nation, a nation and people set apart from the rest of the world, the particular possession of God fit for his purposes. We who believe, we Christians, are a holy nation, his own special people, that you may proclaim the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. As God's people today, we must be set apart, thinking and doing differently than the flow of the world in general. We are a unique people. We are a holy nation. We are set apart for divine purpose. Okay, what is your divine purpose in life? Okay, we're talking about all Christians, which would be many denominations of people. You know, that's a man-made thing. We're talking about Christian people. That's his people today. We're his chosen people today. What is our divine purpose? What is your purpose? Worship is most important, okay? And out of that worship should come what? Sharing the gospel, right? And living right. Yeah, we have a divine purpose, and that is to spread his message throughout the world. We have a unique identity. We are his possession. We are his family. We are God's family. We're unique in that we were first called Christians at Antioch. That's when, right after Jesus' resurrection and the Christianity started to spread, we were first called Christians at Antioch. Christianity today is one of the major religions of the world. We have a unique identity. That identity is found in Jesus Christ. We have a responsibility as a holy nation. We model God's character and values. We're different than other people. Our actions and choices reflect his light, drawing others toward goodness and truth. I wish that was true of all Christians, but it should be that we draw people to God by our actions and what we do. We don't make people shun God. You know, people say, oh, yeah, those folks, they go to West Jackson Baptist Church and, you know, they're just jerks. Hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully it's Christian. That's not the divine purpose, and that's not our responsibility, is to draw people to him. All right, this is a question you can discuss. What does it mean to say we are all priests of God? We are a royal priesthood. What does that mean? That includes you. So what does that mean? Discuss that at your table. Jimmy, what does it mean to be a royal priesthood? Okay, what, as people of God, what do we do as priests? A holy people. Okay, what do priests? Okay, to show his purpose in the world. But what does it mean? What are our actions as priests? What should we be doing because we're a priest? Serving the Lord, okay? Anybody else want to add to that? Spreading the word. Ambassadors for Christ, right? RAs, right? Yes, sir? Okay, we have direct communication to God. At the same time, we can pray for others, right? We can take others' burdens to God. That's right. Okay. So we have priest duties, okay? A lot of you over the years have done lots of things that the priest would do. Anybody ever been on the committee that does the Lord's Supper? Okay. That used to be, you had to get the grape juice and get the little cups out, make sure they were clean, put them in the little trays and fill them up and all that kind of stuff. Okay, and then do the crackers. They don't do that anymore. We just do it in one little thing, right? Okay. That's progress, right? Anyway, that's priesthood. That's things that you do in the church. This, I think, would be part of being a priest. All right, part 3. Our relationship with God as a special possession is dependent on our obedience to him. Okay? Our relationship to God is dependence on our obedience to him. Number one thing is, if you don't trust Jesus, then you're not a Christian. I mean, that's all there is to it. Verses 7 through 8. After Moses came back, he summoned the elders and the people and set before them all these words that the Lord had commanded him. So he told the people what God had told him. Then all the people responded together. This was their response. We will do all that the Lord has spoken. So Moses brought the people's words back to the Lord. Moses here acted as a true priest, an intermediary between God and the people. Here they said, all that the Lord has spoken we will do. Their answer was sincere at the time, but they failed to keep their word, didn't they? Even so with us today. We say, all that God has spoken we will do, and we fail. But God never fails. He waits and pursues us for his own, in his own way of grace and government. So, love for God is to keep his commandments. That's what love for God is. Be part of his family is to keep his commandments and his commands and his direction in your life. Let's take a look at the 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments have been in the news lately. Why? Anybody tell me? They're going to put them back in school. What state is that? Louisiana, that's right. My home state, Louisiana, it's going to have the 10 Commandments published in every classroom this next year. So let's look at the command. These are the laws. There's a basic covenant with God, but these are the laws that Moses bring down in the next chapter. This was Exodus 19. This is Exodus 20. All right, number 1 says, do not worship any other gods. Okay, have no gods before me. What? All right, how do people break that commandment? Discuss that with your neighbor. How do people break, do not worship any other gods? How did anybody tell me? How do you break that commandment?
Ever before God.
Okay, putting something, could be a family member, something before
Anything
God.
that you worship.
All right, things, possessions, anything before God. Okay, and Christians can do that, right? Not worshiping other gods. We know other religions would not worship God, but also Christians. All right. Uh-oh. Number 2, do not make any idols. What does that mean today? I grew up in Catholic country. Just about every other house that you saw had a statue of Mary in their yard. I don't know if that's an idol. You don't see that much up here at all, ever. But I don't know if they worshipped them. It could have been just an ornament in the yard. But do not make idols. What does that mean? What's an idol? All right, goes back to the first verse, putting something that you worship other than God. But do not make idols. So do not make them. Do not go out there and make your idols. The third one, do not misuse the name of God. What does that mean? Or how's that broken today? It's taken in vain. On TV now, you hear that? When you said when we was growing up, we didn't hear that on TV. We didn't hear that in the movies. Okay, but nowadays, I taught school. The last few years, I taught school. Go out in the hallway, you could hear anything, right? And I'm afraid to say, even Christians now, their language is kind of dirty and maybe not taking God's name in vain, but the language today is just awful. Verse 4, keep the Sabbath holy. How do you break that law? How do you break that law? Is shopping at Walmart on Sunday against God's law? Keeping the Sabbath holy? When we were growing up, were the stores open on Sunday? Not very many, just the ones you actually needed. Actually, they had laws about it, right? Were there blue laws? No, maybe that's something else. Maybe that was alcohol. But anyway, stores weren't open on Sunday. Okay. Should the stores be open on Sunday? Now, a lot of the ones here are open what? Afternoon. They don't open in the morning. They're open afternoon. Except for like Walmart. It's open all the time, or practically all the time. But keep the Sabbath holy. To keep the Sabbath holy makes it a special day. Should be a day of rest. Shouldn't be a day of shopping and doing all laundry and washing cars and all that. Would you wash your car on Sunday out there for everybody to see? Oh, so-and-so's washing his car on a Sunday. Don't work on Sunday. Mm-hmm. Right. church Sunday morning, Sunday night. You don't really, and you don't really have much time to in between to do other things. My folks had a dairy farm, so they worked on Sunday. Had to Sunday morning, but in between time they didn't plant pastures and do other things. You go to church. All right, number 5, honor your father and mother. This is the commandment that has a promise attached to it. If you honor your father and mother, what's going to happen? Your days may be longer, your longer life. That's right, honor your father and mother. All right, how's this broken today? Often broken, okay? We watch our grandchildren being ugly to their parents, and you got to sit there and take it because, hey, their parents are in charge. So we should honor our parents. Do not murder, okay? How's this broken today? Oh, yeah. And they say, we see all this crime on TV, and they tell us this really crime is lower than it was. No, do not murder. All right, what about abortion? You think abortion is murder?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Especially when they do it like the 4th, 5th, 7th and 8th month. I don't understand that at all. Do not commit adultery. Sexual sins today are just abound. You hear about that preacher in town. We've had at not Love and Fellowship, that other one, Fellowship. Okay, it's Love and Truth, and then there's Fellowship. Their minister of youth was put in jail from sexual abuse. I mean, that's just awful. And that's, Christian. How do people get from being so devoted to God to going off on the wrong track? And lots of these big churches, mega churches, you hear all kinds of things happen in there. So do not commit adulteries. Just almost like people don't even think about it today. Do not steal. Again, on TV, these gangs go into these shopping centers and just take whatever they want. And the people that work there are supposed to let them. And you can understand why. If they tried to get in the way of all those people, they'd get hurt. Do not lie. Okay, that's one that, it's kind of hard to keep sometimes. Somebody asks you a question and you don't want to give them the true answer, and you don't want to be evasive, and sometimes you just tell a little white lie, but it's still not right. Do not covet. Do not covet. This is a big thing in our society today because we are a materialistic and worldly society, right? The cars, the bigger the better. And other things, the houses, the bigger the better. So do not covet your neighbor's property, slave, wife, and all that kind of stuff is all implied there. But today we do break that commandment too. All right, another eagle. Can you see what that one says? Probably not. Let me tell you what it says. And this is your message today. As the eagle soars, so soar you, O Christian, above life's trials and tempests. So as a Christian, we soar above the clouds, above life's tempests and storms, if we just put our hands in God. Be obedient. That's how you show God you love him. Remember what he did for you and be obedient to his word. All right, any questions or comments? Yes, sir. Say it again.
Commandments worked then, and they still work.
Very good, yeah. The 10 Commandments worked back then, and they still work. That's exactly what I read when I was studying for this. In the extra for Lifeway, the guy got an email from a person. What did he think about the new 10 Commandments? which I haven't heard of in the Ten Commandments. But the dude's answer was, hey, they worked back then. The original ones are work today, apply today. All right. Brother Joe. Prayer request.
All right, that was a good lesson. You know, it was a lot of things that was brought out that, you know, we've known for all our life, but, you know, it's always good to have a refresher and feel refreshed after a message like that. Okay, we're going to go on to our prayer request now. If all right, have we got any things that we need to bring out before we go to the prayer request? Any announcements or anything? Okay, we'll move on to the prayer request. Here you go, Linda.
About 3 weeks ago, one of my great grandchildren, Tyler, who's 12, he had made his profession of faith and he was baptized, and we're so thrilled about that. And also, I want to thank everybody for prayers for my newest great grandbaby. His surgery went well, and he's a happy little butterball. My grandsons, I got so many. My grandson's wife, her dad has cancer, and he's going on hospice this week. His name is Wayne Holmes. And I had a business conversation this week with somebody in New Jersey. And at the end of the conversation, something just told me to ask her if she was a Christian. And she said, "No, I'm not." And I literally got sick to my stomach. I've never had anybody come out and say, "Well, no, I'm not." And it hurt my heart. So if you'll pray for Ricky, I don't know what she is, what she believes, or anything, but it was so nonchalant and cold and empty. It's got to me. And I told her, I said, "Well, I'm going to pray for you anyway." And she didn't say anything else. So if y'all will pray for Ricky, I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Okay, are there other prayer requests?
I talked with Linda Benthel last night, and she asked me to add to what Patsy has said, that Jay would love company. Anybody wants to come see him, he's tickled to death to see you. But you got to call first so they can put the dogs up. Because they will nip at you because they're not used to all the people. And the other thing is that I want to thank you for praying for us. We're getting better. We still need prayers because we're still healing, but I appreciate it. Thank you. Love all of you.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, are there other prayer requests? Okay, Judy?
Well, I haven't talked to Jo Evelyn in the last couple of days, but she's had a respiratory infection, so we still need to pray for her and her healing. And also Glenn and Kathy, Robert's taking Glenn, this next week to Memphis. He's just had a really rough time with his back and the pain going down his leg. And Kathy went through her 2 weeks of that bariatric oxygen therapy, and it just didn't do anything for her. So we need to continue to pray for them. And that's all I've got.
Okay, thank you. Are there others? Okay, if not, I've asked one of my great prayer warriors, Charles, if he'd lead us in our closing prayer.
Our most precious and loving Father, we approach your throne of grace this morning, Lord, just to say thank you for all the blessings of life. Just to say thank you, Lord, for another day that you give us and the blessings that goes with it, Lord, when we wake up of a morning. Father, have you heard each and every request that's been made here this morning? You know each and every need in their lives. And we just pray that you would just touch them and meet that need and bathe them in your love and your grace. Father, just watch over each and every one of us throughout this next week as we go separate ways. We go into our workplaces, and oh Lord, just heat's going to be tremendous. Temperature is going to be rough. But just put your protected hedge around us and keep us safe, Lord, as we work through it. We ask all these blessings and all these things in your holy and precious name.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, if there's no other questions or answers or anything, we're dismissed.